Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
In this interview, which was recorded on October 20th, I talked with Ross Goldberg. Ross is a U.S. Army veteran who shares his compelling story of overcoming severe health problems associated with his military service. And from actually being in a coma, he's gone on to become, among other things, a best-selling author, a software developer who sold a few $1 million worth of software, and an internet traffic expert who has helped hundreds of business owners rapidly grow their business. Ross also takes a great deal of pride in being a mindful mentor to hundreds of fellow online entrepreneurs. Let's go to the interview. Well, today we have Ross Goldberg online. Glad to have you on, Ross.
Good to be here, Jack.
So we were talking a little bit right before the interview, and you actually have been in the internet marketing world for a long time. Can you go into, and you have a great story, can you go just give me a quick kind of overview on what made you go from basically a gang member to gang leader to serving your country to then starting to serve as basically a successful entrepreneur, and starting to generate income and money and success in the private world?
Sure. I was as you mentioned, I was involved in gangs, and my little brother wanted to join the Army. So a recruiter was at our kitchen table, and I was 20 years old, which is a little older than most going into basic training. So just to kind of watch out for my brother, I listened, and this guy was an incredible salesman. My family kind of grew up poor, so hearing about all the college benefits and everything else, and I really kind of wanted to get my degree. And he sold me in tandem with selling my little brother. So surprisingly, at the end of his conversation, he starts my brother filling out the forms to join the Army, and I said, "Where's mine?" He said, "Oh, okay, here you go." And being that I was older and I wasn't in high school like my brother was, I was able to ship right off to basic training. I think 3 weeks later, I left. The funny thing is my brother he finished basic but never made it to AIT. So he actually disqualified himself from service in the long run. But I went off to training, and in training, I was a kid in high school that kind of walked the mile with a cigarette in my mouth with my gym teacher behind me screaming. So when I joined the Army, I was strong, but I wasn't designed to run. So what happened was when I'm running, my ankles were really weak, and I just kept rolling them over and over again. And being the typical tough guy, I didn't want to ask for help. So what I did was destroy my ankle, and it was absolutely my fault because I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want to be weak. So at the end of basic training, I couldn't run 2 miles. I mean, it was nearly impossible. I actually barely made it. In fact, I think the drill sergeants fudged my numbers a little bit to get me out because I just tried so hard. I mean, I was damn near vomiting. So they shipped me off to AIT job training, and I couldn't run at all. It was not possible. I'd go 10 to 20 meters and I'd have to stop. I was just in incredible pain. So in job training, I went through physical therapy, and they actually helped me over at the end because I hadn't passed the run. Push-ups, sit-ups, no problem. I could not run. So they actually got me a walk. And 9 days after I was supposed to go home, I graduated and left. Went home, and the problem was that they kind of rushed me out of there because I was 9 days late. They wanted, literally the next day I was on a plane going home. I didn't have my medical records because they had been at the hospital, which created a kind of a landfall of a big, big mess. First, I went back to my reserve unit, and I said, "I'm in a huge amount of pain. I need to go to the doctor." They're like, "Well, we're working on that. We'll keep you posted." It's kind of the nature of the military to not tell you what's going on behind the scenes. No one's going to turn to you and be like, "Yeah, we never got your medical records." I would have been like, "Oh, they're probably at the hospital." But no one asked me. No one said anything. And it went 2 months, and on the third month, I'm like, fine, if they're not going to help me, I'm not going to help them. I'm not going anymore. So I didn't go for a year. Then I go back, and I lost all my benefits. Still didn't have my medical records, and the war in Iraq had just started. So every 6 months, we were going up to our battalion in Minnesota and doing a readiness check. And at the readiness check, they asked for my medical records, and I told them we don't know where they are. They're gone. So they say, okay, well, we need to vaccinate you then because your unit is deploying. It's not a when, or it's not a if, it's a when. So I said no, and then they told me if I didn't get the vaccinations again, I would go into military prison. So I kind of gave them my arm. So I get a new medical record, go back to my unit, I'm drilling, etc. 6 months later, we go again. We haven't been deployed yet. And they say, okay, where are your medical records? Well, wouldn't you know, my boss lost them. And let's just say misplaced because they did show up later. So the same exact conversation, we have to vaccinate you again. And I said, no, you just did. And I said, in fact, you did it. I know you see a lot of soldiers, but you're the one who vaccinated me for the second time. I don't want them a third. Same exact conversation. Either give us your arm or you're going to military prison. So did that, go back to my unit. 6 months later, we go again. And this is when we're actually deploying. This was the final readiness check. My unit was about to go to Iraq. And at this point, we had found all of my medical records, all three of them combined into one. So they see every shot record I've got, and the woman turns to me and says, you need a booster. I said, ma'am, I have so much of this poison running through my veins right now. You could probably just give my blood to all the soldiers, and they'll never get sick again in their life. She said, give me your arm or you go to military prison. So I got boosters. So then I get to the colonel who has a brief conversation with every soldier just to make sure they're mentally prepared to go to war. And he took one look at my medical records because at that point, some of my illnesses had begun. And I was taking morphine every day for pain. And the colonel looked at it. He said, soldier, you aren't going anywhere. We can't guarantee you're going to have this pain medication you need when you're in Iraq. You can't go. So my unit goes off, and I actually ended up in the role of either admin sergeant or supply sergeant while they were gone. Mind you, I'm a specialist at the time, which is not a sergeant. So it was all kinds of fun trying to get anybody to do anything I needed. But I helped their families, those that came back disabled. I helped them get disability because at that point, I was already 20% disabled while I was still in service, which is nearly unheard of. So all this stuff happens, and I start getting really sick. I'm in drastic pain, major fibromyalgia stuff. If you know what fibromyalgia is, most men don't get it, but most men that do get it are attached to the military. So I filed for disability. I was denied. Fibromyalgia is something that's very difficult to prescribe to someone. It's kind of one of those things where you go through the testing for 800 other things, and if none of those fit, it's fibromyalgia. So as this is going on, I get the bright idea to start an internet business. So I find mattresses that I can resell. I find wholesale mattresses. So I get everything done. I build my basic processes and understand I know nothing about what I'm doing. I know nothing about being an entrepreneur or owning a business. My background was in retail management. So I start this business up, and then one day I can't go to the bathroom. I literally am standing at the toilet pushing until my face is red and nothing's coming. And this is urine. I couldn't pee. I was on some major medication, so going out the other end was always a problem. But so day one, I can't pee. I go to the emergency room. They drain my bladder. They send me home. Day two, same exact thing. I go in. They drain my bladder. They send me home. Day three, I hadn't had a bowel movement either. So at this point, I start hallucinating. I'm talking about the world exploding and everybody around me dying. My wife is having a panic attack because she doesn't understand what's going on. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't physically move my legs. They would not move. She tried to make me angry because at that point in my life, that was something that would get me to do things. And she pushed me out of the bed. I fell on the floor. And during a coherent moment, I turned to her. I said, call 911. Said, I don't understand what's going on, but something's really, really wrong. So they took me to the hospital, drained my bladder, forced the bowel movement out of me, and tried to send me home again. And my ex-wife turned to them and said, he's hallucinating and he can't walk. What do you want me to do? Carry him to the car and then take him home? Something's going on here. So by morning, I was comatose. ended up with pneumonia. I was comatose for 10 days. They were, on day 9, I opened my eyes and locked eyes with my very young at the time son. He's 11 now, but he was 6 months old then. And everyone around me was freaking out, and they were just about to do a tracheotomy and cut a hole in my throat, and I woke up the next morning. So had to relearn how to walk. Thankfully, my ex-wife and my brother figured out how to fulfill the orders that were coming in. I had left just enough of a trail in my email that they were able to kind of sort that out. And it's amazing how understanding people are that their products will be delayed by a day or two when they hear that the owner of the business is in a coma. Everyone was happy. They got what they paid for, and we went back about our business. And I was in the urgent care or ER, et cetera, for about 3 weeks. Went home in a wheelchair, had to relearn how to walk. And while doing that, I sat in front of my computer 16 to 20 hours a day. So I taught myself internet business. I built my own websites. I drove all my own traffic. And that's how I came to the point of being in the business to business and really helping other internet entrepreneurs reach their audience. Because I spent so much time figuring it out on my own, I knew things that the other experts in the industry didn't understand because they honestly had never done it all themselves. They were maybe good at one thing or another thing, but I was good at everything. So, since then, I'm a best-selling author. I sold a book about how to attract attention on the internet. I've sold millions of dollars worth of software. My best-selling training program that was called the Traffic Manifesto has sold over 10,000 units. None of those things are available at this point other than the book. All the software I had is online. I recently decided to hit reset on my business and start over. I have new software in the works. I have new training programs in the works, and have realized that while I believe I can help everybody in internet business, I don't care who you are or what you do, that's not a real good way to have a business. So I really had to take a look at what I'm best at, not just what I'm good at, and identified that I'm really good at building a large business while keeping it mega simple. Very few staff members. I don't want 20 people where I'm paying their bills. I'm going to worry about my bills. I'm going to take care of my customers. And honestly, I like interacting with them. So I have people that I'll have do things that I'm not that great at. For instance, graphic stuff. But generally, I do most of it myself. I run a very simple business. And my primary interest is to find people with amazing products and help them find and connect with their perfect prospect. And I'm really good at it. So that's my ridiculously long story, but, I've been doing this for a decade, and I started from probably the worst place you could possibly start from, which was zero. I mean, I couldn't even walk at the beginning of this journey. So it was pretty crazy that I made my first $1,000 while comatose, but, I've been through it all and done it all. As far as internet business is concerned. And I've seen some of the craziest things. I've seen incredible things. I've seen people come from zero to millions and millions of dollars. And it's really a beautiful thing. We're living in an amazing time where if you can figure out how to harness the power of the internet, you can really build just about anything you want now. And in my opinion, that's a thing of beauty.
One of the things that you mentioned, and it was a pretty long journey once you kind of started and you were doing everything yourself. With some of the things that have evolved now in the marketing world, as you look back, are there hacks? Are there shortcuts now? Do you think people that are trying to start their internet business and keep it simple, just like you are, as far as, being able to keep your overhead low, number of employees low, while they're helping other people grow their businesses. Are there any hacks or shortcuts that you could recommend?
I'm happy to teach the biggest shortcut I know. And this is something that I don't know that I've ever discussed in another interview. So enjoy this, because this is probably the only legitimate hack or shortcut that I'm aware of. So people on the internet go specific places for specific things. So, for instance, the Amazon thing is huge right now. It has been for the last year or two, showing people how to do fulfilled by Amazon products where they will just sell the product for you. And as long as you keep the price a little bit lower than everybody else, you win. And the reason that's working is because people go to Amazon to buy. People go to Google sometimes to search, to research, to look for stuff, to maybe hypothesize and think about things that they'd love to be able to buy if they could afford it. Maybe they can't afford it today and know that they have their taxes or something coming later. Ranking in Google is great. Traffic is great. However, if you can be where someone looks to buy, you win. And what that means is there are marketplaces where people are looking for very specific things. And if your specific thing is something they're looking for and you are on that marketplace, you win. So for me, when I first started a decade ago, that was eBay. Got lucky, put great products up. I copied my listing from everybody else. And I took what I liked and built it into a better listing. And I just made money. And that's maybe the other hack is you are not the first. I don't care what you're selling. I don't care what you're doing. You are not the first. So if you can swipe ideas from your competition and hopefully improve on them, you don't want to just take someone else's stuff. But for instance, if you're selling a training program, find another training program that teaches something similar to what you teach. Create your sales copy similar to the way they have theirs, and you can win. And you don't need to be an absolute expert. You don't need to pay many thousands of dollars for an expensive copywriter. Take what works, modify it so it's yours, and put it out. So as far as hacks or shortcuts are concerned, my two would be utilize the power of marketplaces where people go to buy whatever it is you sell. Another example would be Udemy. If you're selling information or training, Udemy is perfect. And then know that you are not the first. You are never the first. Someone tried to do it before you on the internet. So if you can swipe from the people that did it before you, you can win very easily without gigantic expense and without a huge amount of time to invest.
So that's great. I mean, so basically you're taking a look and just like other businesses where you sit there and take a look at best practices and just, adopt them as best as possible. One of the other things that you mentioned was the fact that you really understand all of it and you really, what you focus on. And I like the way you describe yourself as you're basically a traffic maker. You're the one that brings traffic, and you don't say that you rely on any one method. You basically take a look at the people that you're helping, you find where their perfect customers are. And that could be, multiple locations or just a few, but you find those places and that's the traffic you go after. What would be your recommendation to business owners? Because a lot of times they get sold on, what we might call like a one-trick pony, right? They get sold on just SEO or pay-per-click or Facebook advertising. What would be your recommendation to a business owner? Should they hang on to just one method of traffic, or what's the best way for them to go after traffic?
Well, I'm going to answer that with a story and then a statement. So I did that. That was the first 3 to 4 years of my business was SEO over everything. And I was really good at it. So not only was I doing it for myself, I was getting paid as much as $25,000 a month to do it for other companies as well. So I had my strategies. They worked very well. I was very happy with the results I was able to produce for me and my clients. And then Google decided one day, you know what? We're going to change the way we do everything. And all my rankings and all my clients' rankings gone instantaneously. No real warning. They didn't say, hey, you might want to stop doing things this way. We prefer if you do it this way instead. Nothing. They just, bam, switch. Now, if you think about it from Google's perspective, it's one of the smartest things they could have done because their business is based upon ad revenue, at least at that point in time. They didn't have Android. They didn't have any of that other stuff. Their business was ad revenue. So that cost me alone over $100,000. I was about to sell one of my software programs that ranked, I think it was number 7 at the time for SEO software. And obviously when that disappeared, the value of my website dropped dramatically. So it easily cost me $100,000. And at that time, number one, I was scared to death to give any SEO advice outside of those that had paid me for that, whether they were my clients or they were customers of my training programs. I gave them what I felt was the best path to follow based upon what Google wanted and what they did to us. And then I stopped giving SEO advice altogether for years. I wouldn't do it. And what dawned on me over time is that focusing on a single traffic strategy sets you up to fail. And what will happen is it doesn't matter what this strategy is. It can be any of them. It could be Facebook ads, social ads on every social website. It could be search engine optimization. It could be media. It could be anything. It could be advertising, just advertising in general. Focusing on one traffic method and putting all your eggs in one basket is just asking for someone to come along with a hammer and smash them to nothing. That's not a business. That's a hobby. If you would like to run a business, you need to have a diverse source of customer lead flow into your business. And that is done by understanding who your customer and prospect is. Again, remember I said to you, I can help anybody. However, when I ran my business that way, it was very difficult to get sales. My sales copy was generic, which meant that I wasn't speaking to a specific situation. I wasn't striking a chord with the people that were reading my sales copy, and I was creating frustrating customers who were generally unhappy because their situation was not the one that I was speaking towards. Their dreams, their desires. So understand who your prospect is, and then the final step is to understand where they are. And then do everything in your power to get in front of them. That's it. Just get in front of them, period. If you can do that, you can win.
One of the things I was taking a look at just the other day was that even while technology continues to change, and you brought up some interesting points there about the desires of the prospects, and it made me think of AIDA, which even from the classic movie like Glengarry Glen Ross, when Alec Baldwin flips over the board and he has ABC for always be closing, then he has AIDA for getting their attention, which is what you just mentioned, getting their interest, then creating that desire, and then getting them to take the action you want. Do you find that a lot of modern day marketers get too tied up in the technology piece of it and don't focus on the basics?
Absolutely. And there are two things in any business that make all the difference in the world. And if you can get these two things right, you can win. Even if you suck at absolutely every other piece, you can still win. Number one is the offer. Your offer has to be part of that attention. You need to get their attention with an offer that's good. You need to have a good offer. That is shaped around having a great product at a great price and providing all the value that you promise. If you can do that in an offer, you can win with today's internet. With the popularity of social media and everybody being on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever, bad news travels 10 times faster than it did 3 or 4 years ago. So if you have a phenomenal offer and deliver on the value that you promise, you can win. The other piece of that puzzle is the attention piece, the hook. You have to have a killer hook. And what is a hook? The hook is something that grabs the reader by their private region and forces them to pay attention. So I'm going to give you an example, because to me, the first thing I think of when I have a product that's close to release is the hook. Because if I don't get the hook right, it will not succeed. It will not make me the kind of money that I want it to. So I have a project management system that I'm about to release. It's actually something I've worked on and off for over 5 years. And it started because I wanted my customers to use my training products. I wanted to give them systems where in just a couple of clicks, they could fill their calendar with all the stuff to do to reach the desired result. And I was going to have all my buddies give me systems and build all these things in and all this stuff. And it just never really came to fruition. So The new focus is on the same thing as before, but it's systems. Because systemizing your business means that if something bad happens to you, your business can continue to run as long as you have someone who can access your system. So when I was trying to come up with the hook for this, you need something that's basically a punch right in between the eyes. So the hook that I came up with, and again, this product isn't even for sale yet. The hook that I came up with is, if you die today, will your business continue tomorrow? And if you think about that, and that situation and the process that begins in the mind of a reader that would see something like that, that's grabbing someone by their private parts and refusing to let go. And as long as they stick it out for the messaging that I've got that'll prove that I can help their business run if they're not there, I win. And my conversion rates should be through the roof. My profits should be through the roof. And as long as I fulfill on my promise, my customers will be very happy. So to recap, the two things that you need are a killer offer and a killer hook. If you have those two things, it would be very difficult to lose.
Well, that's actually when you were telling your story earlier about why you were in the coma, and that your wife and your friends were able to kind of like go back and, find the trail of what you did. I mean, to me, that, as you were talking about the hook, that's kind of the project manager. That was the first thing that came to my mind. And trying to imagine, a person, because life is so uncertain. The fact is, someone else could very quickly find themselves in the same situation where something happens and they are in the hospital for a period of time or in a coma. That definitely hit home to me with your story when you started to talk about that as a hook also. So that's great advice. And you talked about systems. Is it getting to the point where you almost have to take like a systems engineering approach to marketing to integrate, that retargeting is another huge piece of it for like Facebook. You see Facebook ads or other type of advertising, and integrating all these different disciplines. Are you finding it that it's not, marketing is a lot more complex than it has to be, that you actually have to start documenting, like almost using a systems engineering approach?
It helps.
Okay.
I would agree with that statement. The thing is, and this is something as a teacher or trainer that's always frustrated me, there's a new training product every hour. Right. And that's probably every 5 minutes, right? But I love these guys that are like, this is how it works. This is how traffic works. Traffic's the best example. In my humble opinion, no one understands traffic as well as I do, and the only person on the planet that teaches traffic in a generic fashion that does it well is John Reed. Anyone who's been in internet marketing for any period of time, he was the first marketer to sell $1 million worth of training programs in a day. And his product, Traffic Secrets, was phenomenal. It was amazing, but it wasn't really about traffic. It was really, here's internet marketing in a box. So his new one, Traffic Secrets version 2 or 3 or whatever it is, Infinite Edition, who knows? He's been doing this for almost 10 years as far as teaching, doing B2B stuff. He had 24 modules in his traffic training. And the problem becomes, if you're going to listen to someone's course and try to learn their strategy, and they're going to try to teach you everything, is that they're missing the boat on the single biggest and most important issue that you're going to face, which is your customers and your product identify what traffic strategies you use. To reiterate what I just said, your prospects, not your customers. Your prospects, who they are, where they go, and the products that you have for sale, what they are, what they do, what their purpose is. Those are the things that dictate how you should be getting your traffic. So a brick and mortar store will not drive traffic the same way as someone who has products on Amazon or who has their own website or who even sells on Udemy. All of those require different strategies. So when it comes to driving interest to your business and the products that you sell on the internet, the primary thing you must do is understand who your prospect is and where they are. Then you can figure out which pieces you need to deploy to get in front of them. So Facebook ads are going to be general. They're one of the few things that can apply to almost anybody because they're inexpensive, and just about every audience is using Facebook in some capacity, unless you're targeting very young kids who kind of feel Facebook is uncool because their parents use it. Generally, you will find your audience on Facebook, and even if your audience is kids, there are still plenty there to target. So outside of Facebook ads and maybe Google and SEO, it's going to vary by product. It's going to vary by prospect. And the secret is simply just get in front of them. Wherever they are, wherever they go, figure out a way to get in front of them.
That's great. I appreciate it. For your customers, I appreciate the story that you're telling. What's the best way to get hold of you? If I've got some veterans in transition or veteran business owners that would love to give business to a fellow veteran, what's the best way to get hold of you?
Well, that's always going to be at ross-goldberg.com. If you Google my name, and believe it or not, my name is actually fairly common. I've got a doctor. I've got a writer for Harvard newspaper I'm competing with. Google my name. The first thing that comes up is me. And as I mentioned at the very beginning of this conversation, I actually wiped my entire business over the last couple of months and decided to start over. It's funny because I'm kind of going back in the direction I was going, just with new and different angles. But there's a contact me page at ross-goldberg.com, and that will always have my most recent information, and you can always reach me through that. Contact me any way you're comfortable with. You can add me as a friend on Facebook. Basically, Google me, you'll find me, and reach out whatever way you're comfortable. I'm not the typical internet marketing guru who doesn't like talking to my customers. I really enjoy it. So please reach out. We'll talk, and we'll figure out how I can help you.
Super. Once again, everybody, that's Ross Goldberg. He just gave you the way to get hold of him. Reach out to him. I think you'll be glad you did. Thanks, Ross.
You're very welcome.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.